Welcome to Everyday Ethics, everybody. I'm your host, Michael Liebowitz. As you can see, I am all by myself today. Never fear, I've got a great topic for you. Things are going to go swimmingly, as they say. I have to tell you, please sign up for the channel, The Rational Alternative. Subscribe. We've got some great content, multiple shows. Hey, Danny, my old buddy. Haven't seen you in a while. You've been selling me out, but that's all right. I know we'll hook up again soon. Hopefully Tuesday we'll get back on track. Um, yeah, so follow us on Twitch. We've got all the shows. We've talked to you about this stuff. Check out our merch, our website, all that. But really, I have a good topic today that I want to discuss. So I came across this morning. What was it in Axios, I believe? Yeah, it was in Axios, and it cited this Gallup poll, and the poll said it's the share of Americans who say the state of moral values is poor. A record high of 56% of Americans say moral values in the U.S. are poor, according to a Gallup poll out this morning. That's up 12 points from just last year. And 80% say moral values are getting worse, which is 14 points higher than in 2020. But I didn't just sort of rest there. I thought that was interesting. I'm curious what you folks think. Do you think that the state of morality is poor? Do you think that worse? Do you think it's getting better? How do you judge? Some interesting things came out of this as I looked into this. So first I wanted to know, over the years, what have people thought about this? Did people think that morals were decaying? Now, the polling from Gallup only goes back from 2002, and they asked this question. How would you rate the overall state of moral values in this country today? Excellent, good, only fair, or poor? And do you think the state of moral values is getting better or getting worse? And right now, as I told you, 56% say it's bad. But some very bizarre, well, I don't know if they're bizarre, but interesting things came out of this. And that is that politics somehow ties into this, so that when your party is in the White House, they tend not to think morals are as bad as otherwise, except for now. Now everybody seems to think morals are getting worse, regardless, Democrat, Republican, Independent, doesn't really matter. They think it's getting worse. I think I know why. I don't know though. That what I'm interested in is Trump the cause or the effect of a decline in morals? I tend to think both. I think there's a reciprocal causation going on there. When you see somebody behave like Trump does on the national stage over and over again, I think that can have sort of a corrosive effect on morality of people. But I went further, and I asked it, how do people, now people may judge the morality of others as being bad, but I was interested, how do people judge their own? And sure enough, people tend to think that they are moral exemplars. People think that by and large they are moral. It's the other folk that are not moral. Interestingly, their assessment of other people's conduct was accurate. So it wasn't that they haven't, they know themselves and are misjudging everybody else. They are misjudging themselves, but getting everybody else correct. Now, I was curious also, something else that came out of this, by the way, was that other countries don't see themselves as unethical. The United States is the only country where the people think morals are bad or morals are getting worse. I also looked into, okay, but what's the standard? Because one of the things they said is they're judging other people. First of all, the biggest problem that people see is a lack of respect for others, the lack of manners, a lack of consideration. It's all wrapped up in how people treat others. So and then when they were saying, as they're judging other people, they're judging them to be less generous, for instance. So it's always about other people, how you're treating other people. So I asked the AI, I said, okay, what moral system are people using? What is their backdrop as they're judging people, as they're judging themselves? And I gave a few alternatives. I gave egoism, altruism, utilitarianism, and it gave me an answer that I should have expected. And it said people generally don't ascribe. Good afternoon, Kathy. People don't generally ascribe to a specific theory of ethics. It said that what they do is most people say they rely on common sense, which I think is just absurd. The idea that you're going to use common sense to make complex moral judgments, what that means to me is they go along with the morality that's been implanted in them since they were children. So in their house, in their culture, in their schooling, on television, whatever eclectic mix they've come up with, that's what they're doing. Is it's a type of intuitionism, not the philosophical school of ethical intuitionism. I want to make sure I'm not being misunderstood, but it's sort of a common sense intuitionistic approach that they just sort of know what's right and wrong. At the same time, a high percentage said that they rely on logic. So there would have to be overlaps between common sense and logic. But if you're relying on intuition, you by definition aren't relying on logic. I mean, it's just, that's just what it is. So it said that but it said that Democrats tend to, racism was one of the things that comes up. In Democrats, it judge more narrowly than conservatives when it comes to morality. Conservatives have broader, religious sort of norms, of sexual norms, things of that nature. Interestingly, younger people think that drinking alcohol is more morally suspect than what older people think. But I was curious because it said that they don't rely on altruism, but they're always using terms of other people. And so I said, okay, do people generally think of morality in terms of how they treat themselves or how they treat other people? So the overwhelming answer is how they treat other people. That people, when they think morality, it's a concern with, are you generous? Are you considerate? Are you polite? Are you nice? That sort of thing. It's not about how they treat themselves. Claude, the AI that I used for this experiment, said, though, it's interesting because there's more acceptance now for what people do that only affects themselves. That it's just like, okay, you have to let people be. If people want to do this, that's their business. But that's the other side of the same coin, is that if morality is all about how you treat other people, then yeah, you would say, well, I don't care how people treat themselves. What difference does it make, right? It's about how you treat others. So the overall assessment that I got is, so here's some conclusions, and we can talk about these. I really would like some questions, some feedback from you, my loyal audience. People think that the state of morality in America is bad. People think that it's getting worse. They tend to think that they themselves are moral where others are not. They judge morality based on how people treat others, and the biggest concern is with being considerate or polite, that sort of thing, having manners, thinking of other people when you act. That's how they predominantly think of morality. I think that is altruism. I asked, but I was out of questions because I don't pay for it. I asked, isn't this implicit altruism? But I couldn't get it through. But to me, it is. So I think that there's a lot of problems embedded in this. One is that, first and foremost, people don't have an objective standard by which they judge morality. It's all just whatever happens to occur to them is immoral. That's a problem. Right? You wouldn't accept that on a math test, or if you're doing a history test or in a debate, you wouldn't ever accept it. Or, the medicine to give to your child if your child's sick, or the medicine you're going to take, you wouldn't go with, well, I just feel it, so I'm going to go with my feelings. Morality is important. Morality is the science of human values. It's how we behave every day, how we ought to behave every day. It affects every aspect of our lives. It shouldn't be done based on, well, I have a hunch, right? That should not be our morals. But now these people were all asked in a poll. But in my experience, people generally don't talk morality on a daily basis. People aren't even really interested in it. I think that needs to change. I think that people need to start talking about morality, talking about how they come to moral conclusions, their moral decisions in their everyday lives. Start to really think about these things. Start to assess them logically, rationally, see if there is a rational ethic. I believe there is. I believe it's egoism. I believe human life is the standard of moral value. So that's something that I think is important. But also this idea that people have that they are moral exemplars, but everybody else is not, or a vast majority of people are not, shows a woeful lack of self-awareness, which tells me that people don't know how to introspect. They don't know how to be objective when it comes to themselves. But that's vital. We have to be objective when it comes to ourselves if we wish to gain self-awareness, if we wish to gain happiness, if we wish to correct our flaws. We need to be able to take an honest look at what's going on in our minds and what is going on in our actions on a daily basis. Now, there's tools that we can use. First of all, you have to have a commitment to being honest, right? To being honest with yourself, of fearing nothing, of facing who you are, what you do, how you think. You need to have that. Then introspect on a regular basis. Just take some time. And when you find yourself in a troubled situation, ask yourself honestly, what did I do to contribute to this? If I'm in a bad situation, I mean, if I'm having a friend that's taking advantage of me, okay, what did I do to get in this? If I'm having an argument and we're having a disagreement over who's wrong, okay, well, what might I have done that was wrong in this situation? How could I have contributed? Also, it helps to have a friend, a good friend, that will be honest with you, that will tell you when you are screwing up. Now, the friend has to be rational. The friend can't just be some dope off the street who's, just going by his feelings. But you ask the friend, hey, what do you think about my behavior here? Are you seeing any negative patterns in my behavior? Am I doing things wrong? Am I acting against my own interest? Am I violating anybody's rights? Am I treating others unfairly? Am I not showing a sense of justice when I'm treating other people in my actions toward other men and women? And the friend can help you. So if you combine a desire to get better, hi, Eddie Richards. If you combine a desire to get better, a commitment to being honest with yourself, you have an objective standard to measure this by, and you're taking an honest look at yourself, judging your own behavior, getting feedback from others in your environment, you could go a long way toward behaving better and toward building a better life for yourself, right? These are just good. Yes, Nicole says we can't improve what we refuse to see clearly. Yes, you cannot change what you won't acknowledge. But I think that we also have to get rid of this idea that ethics is all about other people. It's all about how I treat others. No, I need ethics because I don't know how to live. Well, I mean, not me personally, but I mean, we don't come equipped with an instinct that tells us how to live. We don't come equipped knowing what foods are healthy, what activities are good for us, what type of friends are going to benefit us. We have to learn those things. And these type of things, other than the other people, would apply. If I'm stranded on a desert island, I need to learn quickly how to survive. What's going to be good for me? What berries can I eat? How do I build maybe a little fortress? What animals are dangerous to me? I have to assess and learn those things. It doesn't change because other people are around. I still have to learn how to act. What types of behaviors are going to maximize my life and my well-being? Right? Now, these types of considerations were completely missing from the polling data that I used to research for this episode. But these are the vital things about morality that we need to know. Right? So when we're judging ourselves, when we're judging others, we need to understand, are these people fundamentally rational beings? Are they behaving rationally? Are they driven by whim? Are they driven by emotion? Because if somebody is driven by emotion, if they're driven by whim, they are dangerous to you. They are dangerous to themselves. They are dangerous to others. Because the emotions that they feel are random. They're not rooted in logic. They're not rooted in rationality. They're just coming. And, maybe that person had a good upbringing. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. But I do know that if they're not thinking rationally, they're not in my interest. Right? And if I'm not thinking rationally, I can't benefit myself and I can't benefit others. All right. Any questions up till now? I could use some questions. I could use some help. I'm all by myself today. Remember, Persephone left me for dead. Mark didn't offer to sit in. Jim Valiant is kaput. So I'm all alone. I could use some help. A question. Curiosity. What do you guys think? Is morality getting worse? Is it getting better? Do you feel like you're a moral person? Do you have an objective standard by which to judge? I'm alone because Persephone had to go somewhere, Danny. But thanks. That's not really the type of question that I was looking for. But I do appreciate it nonetheless. It was a nice question. Danny says he would have co-hosted. I would have brought you on, Danny. I might consider that from now on. If I'm alone, I might bring Danny because Danny's got a great personality. He'd be great on the show. That would be wonderful. I did an episode today of The Rational Egoist. It's out right now, my podcast. It's not on this channel. It's on its own channel, The Rational Egoist, on YouTube, on Spotify. And we reviewed the book Shane. Very good book, by the way. But the conversation was predominantly about heroism. And, I said that when I think of a hero, I think of somebody that has courage and character. The character to do what's right and the courage to act things out, even in precarious and dangerous situations. Because sometimes it's not hard to do what's right. Sometimes it is. When the world turns against you, when even your friends are judging you, or your friends are disagreeing with you, it can be difficult to buck the tide, to sort of keep going, to do what's right. But that's the type of stuff that heroism is made of. Heroism isn't always about having shootouts with the bad guys, right? Heroism can be about how you conduct yourself in your daily engagements. Oh, I'm happy that you're reading Shane, Megan. That's awesome. You should check out the episode. The episode was with me, Andy Bernstein, in Nikos Soterakopoulos, recording from Greece. Great episode. Two very, very, very bright guys. Kathy Cassio says, I found myself in recent years constantly looking inward. My moral compass has changed. Bravo for you, Kathy. Katie Ellis says, I have a question, not really an ethical kind of question, not sure, but why are people so quick to blame capitalism for everything, like whether or not they are getting paid at their job? And then she asks, is a living wage like capitalist steals people's money is what they claim, when we know that's not the case, but I've seen it a lot. Okay, so it actually is an ethical question. It has to do with personal responsibility, right? And I'll address Eddie Richards. We'll see what he has to say. But yeah, part of morality and part of the heroism and the courage is taking responsibility for your own life, right? It's accepting that, okay, I might screw up, but if I do, that's my screw up. That my life is my responsibility. If I'm lacking things, I need to learn how to get them. If I don't have the skills for a good job, I need to get the skills that would fit the current job market and not just stay pat doing what, thinking I can just do what I've been doing forever. The world changes. So it absolutely is an ethical question. And I think that there's a couple components to this. I think some people don't want to take responsibility for their own actions. So it's easy to blame others or blame the system in which they live. So that's an easy, that's an easy part of it. I think another part is there's liberal guilt, is it's known as. But it's interesting because I was just reading, was it yesterday? No, Tuesday. I was reading on Tuesday about John Lennon, and a friend, I didn't know how much of a socialist John Lennon was. I knew that, the song Imagine is very socialistic, but and I guess that later on in life, John Lennon actually admitted that part of his advocacy for these left-wing causes was that he felt guilt over his fortune. So you have people that don't want to take responsibility for themselves, and you have others who feel guilt for their own good fortune. Good fortune. John Lennon certainly put in a lot of work to get rich. It didn't just fall into his lap. So that's a component. You have some people that are just very condescending and don't think that others can make it in the world. So they would blame capitalism for people not succeeding. And then there's also just a fundamental misunderstanding of capitalism. So they don't understand that what capitalism is. So, for instance, if the government is raising minimum wage and people become unemployed, then they say, look, capitalism caused the unemployment, when in reality, no, the minimum wage led to the unemployment. When they see inflation, when they see prices rising all around them, they'll say things like, oh, well, look, this is capitalism. I can't afford anything. When in fact, it's the government printing press or government tariffs or government disrupted supply chains that are causing prices to rise, to causing unaffordability. So they don't understand even what capitalism is as they're blaming it. And that has a moral dimension too, because they're not putting in the work to actually find out. So Megan says she contrasted the stump scene with Velociraptor. Did we just become best friends scene from Step Brothers? I just recently saw the movie Step Brothers. I have to admit I laughed. It was dumber than hell, but it was a funny movie. So yeah, that's a great scene. The stump scene, oh, by the way, in Shane. Great scene. Eddie Richards says because they're woke and can't handle reality. My screen just got flipped. Because they're too emotional and think the world evolves around them. I think there's some of that. I think that when people go to the Wokeville, for instance, it becomes sort of part of their identity, their philosophy, that the world is unfair, that they're being oppressed because of their race, their gender, their sexual, orientation. And this is not to say that nobody is oppressed because of their gender, their race, or sexual orientation, right? I'm not saying that. It's like I used to have when I was in prison, I have a good friend of mine. We used to talk about this. And he was a black guy. And I told him, I'm not saying racism doesn't exist, and I'm not saying that it wouldn't be harder for you to succeed maybe than a white guy. What I'm saying is you still can succeed. If you're willing to put forth the work, develop the work ethic, the intelligence to succeed, you can. And that guy is out of prison now, and he's a success. So I think that is a part of it. I think bad philosophy certainly is a big part of this. But bad philosophy is a part of the screwed up ethics that we have. The fact that people think it's wrong to act in their own self-interest, that they don't think that they have a right to succeed if they put forth the work. They don't think they have a right to take care of themselves. They think that they should be sacrificing for others, that's moral. That's all a part of bad philosophy. So Katie Ellis says she spent 2 days arguing with a guy blaming capitalism because he could die of deprivation because he spent years at one job not making a living wage and nobody would offer him better. You might want to reassess how you're spending your time, Katie. If you're arguing with some guy for 2 days, if he doesn't want to get it, maybe he just doesn't want to get it. You can't make people understand things that they don't want to understand. And some people are very much invested in having a victim mentality, because as long as I can blame somebody else, there's nothing wrong with me. So I have my own self-image, fragile as it may be, to protect, because I don't want to accept my own responsibility. So, my whole life, up until I was probably 22, and sitting in a jail cell, it was everybody else's fault. You don't know what I've been through. I grew up in the projects. My parents were heroin addicts. My father was an alcoholic. My father was absent. My parents taught me violence. I witnessed violence. None of it was my fault the way that I was. I had everybody else to blame all the time. The thing is when you do that, if you would think that the environment determines your behavior, well, then how could I ever change? It was only the day when I took responsibility for my own life, when I recognized that I was the cause of my problems, that I therefore could change my character and therefore change the environment. Then I put in the effort, then I put in the work. And since then, now I actually have good friends. I've got a good life and things are going well. I feel better about myself, But had I just kept blaming my parents and blaming my environment and blaming Danny, I kid, but I'd be screwed. And so is anybody else that holds that mentality. I would highly recommend looking into Albert. I'd look up really three thinkers if you're watching this that address this type of issue. Nathaniel Branden, in his thinking, his writing on self-esteem. Albert Bandura and his writings on self-efficacy are good. And Julian Rotter, it's spelled Rotter, Rotter, on the internal-external locus of control, right? He talks about how some people have an internal locus of control where they believe that they are in charge of their lives and, what they do and what they get, whereas people with an external locus of control think it's everybody else, it's the world, they are not responsible for their own behavior. But yeah, so Megan, I'm glad that you are reading Shane, great book, and Danny, I'm happy that you never feel guilty for being successful. You shouldn't. If you've earned it, you've earned it. It's something to be proud of and not ashamed of. Simple as that. That's my view on it. So what do we got? We got any more questions? Anybody got anything else they want to say? Anything they want to add? I'll give it a minute. But if there's nothing, we're coming up on the 30-minute mark anyway, and I've got a walk to take. I've been taking walks lately. I think that's good for me. It's healthy. I think that it's the ethical thing to do. I walk around. I get some sun. There's a store down the street. I take a nice walk to it. I get some sun. I get my energy drink. I walk back. Sebi is busy tonight, brother. You should have told me this earlier because I've already made plans. You can't just throw it up at the last day. Maybe Saturday, Danny, we could get together for dinner. My headaches, I haven't been having any lately. Sure, we'll get the Mexican on Saturday, Danny. My headaches are better, and I'm also sleeping. Okay, pick another night. Doesn't matter. I've been sleeping much better, too. Persephone recommended that I take magnesium for sleep. I switched from melatonin to magnesium, and I've been getting full night's sleeps lately. Is that how you say it? Yeah, full night's sleep. One night I got up at 3 and couldn't get back, but other than that, I've been sleeping through the night, which means I'm up at like 5. But hey, that's good. Okay, Saturday, Danny. Saturday we got plans, Danny. You and me. Saturday we're gonna do it. Awesome. Diana's going to love that because I'm having dinner with 2 other friends tomorrow night. And then when I tell her Saturday I'm having dinner with a different friend, she's going to be thrilled. But hey, I got to maintain my friendships. Yes, I looked it up because I get the, jumpy legs, restless leg syndrome. And the magnesium has been helping with that as well. That's fantastic. All right, folks, listen. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for joining the show. If you're joining here from X, check out the Rational Alternative. That's the name of the channel. On that channel, we do Capitalist Corner. We do this. We do Crime Corrections and Culture. We also do Capitalist Corner weekends. If you become a subscriber, we've got special content just for you, and we've got more shows coming down the pike, both for the main channel or for the free stuff and for the paid subscriber stuff. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your night. See you tomorrow. And until then, be ethical.